everyone. Good morning. It's a beautiful day outside. Thank you all for coming, and thanks Craft Victoria for having me here. Before we start, I would like also to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I'm on, the Bunurong people of the Great Kulin Nation. Pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and their connection to the land and the waterways, and any First Nation people among us today, and also that this land was, is, and always will be Aboriginal land. And with this, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Christina Darras, and I'm an interdisciplinary artist, which means that I make my art in many different ways. I consider myself a little bit of a visual poet because I have this little verse in my head, and I'm trying to bring it into vision and communication with other people through different mediums. So I will usually choose a tactile way, a long process, and I will deliver my little poem, my little verse. I'm from Athens, Greece, and I moved to Melbourne 5 years ago. I did my studies in painting in France and printmaking in St. Martin's in UK, then moved back to Greece. I had a career for about 25 years as a freelance artist and a jewelry maker and designer. And then I decided to move here with my family and my dog, who might be barking through this session. I have my studio at Kingston Arts. So today I should be talking to you from there. But because of COVID, our beautiful studios are closed. It's a space with 4 artists, Rebecca, Rob, and Paula, and a wonderful team of people who are supporting us, especially in these difficult and challenging times for art and creative people. So today we'll be making these guys here. And I'll start sharing my screen, which is a tricky part for me because I'm not a technology freak. So there I am. I'll put this so that you can see it all. There's my logo. I hope you can all see it. And I will describe a little bit my work through my time here. So this is a part of a body of work called I Do Not Belong, which I presented at the Vitrine Gallery at Craft Victoria, which is embroidery on watercolor, and it's about migration and losing one's identity. These are drawings, monochromatic drawings, quite large scale, with one pencil or with just one tone, trying to push my way through tone and plasticity in one dimension, and in 2 dimensions rather. And I'm using this impersonator, which is a dog rabbit instead of a human figure. And yeah, it's a knitter who's recovering for trauma and some kind of royalty, and has a little verse, "We need more poets now." This is another little exhibition that I did as an artist in residence at Craft Victoria, and was called Bottle People, made out of plastic bottles, covered in papier-mâché, looking as little characters, and they represent the loss of people in the sea when they're trying to find a safe land. This is a part of the work I'm doing right now. I'm the 2nd year of a master's in contemporary art at the VCA. So this was my 1st year, and was also part of an exhibition called Zero Clock, curated by Sophia Kai. It was about time, which is now present, and by the time you say present is already the past. So is the length of time, and especially in creative processes. So there's drawing and cutting and mending and knitting and collage, and my impersonator here eating an ice cream. This is at Kingston Arts right now because it's locked in with a lockdown. So it has been hanging there for quite some time. It's part of the grants recipient for 2020. It's called One Self to Many. And there are 450 linocuts stitched together in one big piece, one big kilt or safety blanket, representing the multiple identities in one person. This is my jewelry, my secret garden, which is Art Craft Victoria. And it represents the bringing the emotions to the fore, like a bouquet of flowers sitting on the chest. This is also part of my work at Masters at VCA, and it's called Life as a Circus. So it has, you can see slowly how diverse the practice is, how it's like a bit crazy, and knitting and painting, and it's not like a brand thing. It doesn't like repeat itself. It's quite different. So this one is about the unpredictability of life as a, you know, living in these times, but also as an artist. And there it's acrylic paints stitched all together and knitted from one to the other. And this is also part of the same project, Life as a Circus, where I made this puppet out of paper and painted them, has lots of joints, each one of them. And then I combined them into a stop motion animation. This is my beautiful studio where we were supposed to be today. This is the Kingston Arts, and these are the masks that we're going to make today, like the soft heads. And that's the way I display them in the studio. You can see other projects going on and a quite clean floor. So this is a shot of almost all of them. Outside, they represent, again, the multiple identities. It's not like a mask as a pretension identity, but it's more how many identities can you content in oneself. And these are a few close-ups, so you can bring a little bit of three-dimensionality to the surfaces by adding felt noses or felt tears. I love kitsch and I love color, so there's plenty of it in my work. And also you can paint not straight to the front, but you know, using the corners of the mask. So the materials we're going to use today is calico fabric, better heavy to hold the shape, acrylic paints and brushes, threads and beads and needles. If we're lino printing, lino surface, a roller, a cutting tool, and printing inks, and a pair of scissors. We'll cut 4 pieces of a rectangular piece and 1 square. We'll then paint on the second stage, print and embroider with our threads and beads. And then we'll stitch machine or hand. I'll use machine, the first, second, third, fourth, and then the first to the last one to make the round shape. And then on the top, we're going to stitch the top lid, and then we're going to reverse it and finish the edges. So I'm going to start my video now. I have 2 templates made of card, where one is 18 by 18 and the other one is 18 by 25 centimeters. You can use any kind of measurements you want, but I find that that suits me. It's not too small, not too big. And then I'm going to bring my fabric, which is unprimed canvas. I prefer it. I'll put it on my table so I have a nice and steady base. I'll use 1 centimeter margin all around. It's about 1 finger. And I'm going to mark it with my pencil all the way around. So I don't mind the marking on the fabric because it's on the back side. It's on the inside. You're not going to be seeing this. You're going to use this red line as a guide to stitch on with your machine or by hand. So this piece, I'm going to make it 4 times on my fabric. I'm going to leave 2 centimeters now between them, margin, and I'm going to trace my square one. So all I need is 1 square and 4 rectangulars. That's only 1 time. So what I'm going to do now is cut my fabric. Again, on the table, it's nice and easy, 1 centimeter around my shape, and I'm going to cut with my scissors. It's nice and steady on the table because it gives you a nice base so that you can have more control on how you cut and how you go around your shape without going wrong. And I'm going to cut 4 of these and 1 of the others. What I'm going to do now is place a card on my table so that I don't have any leaking paints on it because it can go through the fabric. I'm going to turn it to the other side so that the line is on the card and I'm working on the other side of the fabric. And I have 4 of these pieces, as I told you before, and which I'm going to paint and decorate and embroider and have fun, and 1 for the top. Next stage is I have my card, my fabric, and my acrylic paints, water, brushes, a little thing to wipe your brushes, a palette to mix your colors, and different kinds of widths of brushes. And what I'll do is I'll wet my fabric first, because I don't use a prime canvas because I like the accidents and the roughness. And I like to use materials that I feel happy to use. So I like how, look, the blue looks fantastic, how it dissolves, and like the little washes and the roughness. But if that's not what you like, if you like something very, very neat, and go for it. That's just my way of accepting how messy and messy I am. So I will paint with white. I like how the wetness of the surface and the paints mix with each other, and just cover the area. I don't paint around the edges, because it will make it harder for you to stitch through, either with machine or by hand, because it makes the fabric much, much thicker and a little bit difficult to go through. So once I will change a little bit with my brushes. If I want to put some out, I will just go with a nice bright red, use random lines and have fun. I really like to enjoy my making. So if I do mistakes, it's another reason for going over and discovering, more stuff. Mistakes is the beginning of creativity, Grayson Perry says, and I quite like that. So it's good. Make as many mistakes as you want, and add and cover on top. I'll make the teeth here. I like how they dissolve into the mouth. So yeah, basically just feel free, go for the process of painting and less for the result. If I want a little bit of more dry paint, I will leave it to dry, usually in the sun or near a heating device. And then I will paint with dry paint on top. If you find that after drying your fabric is a little bit wobbly, then you can iron it from the backside, or put it, if you have the time, under like heavy books, and it will become straight. But yeah, in general, they don't become very wobbly. Depends from the kind of fabric you have. So I will go all the way around except from the edges, and yeah, use a little bit of more yellow there, and some muddy colors. Francis Bacon used to paint with the dust inside his workshop, his studio. So I'm done. I'll leave it to dry for a while. And if I want, I can go over. Now I'm going to show you the printing part. So this is a printed fabric. I'm going to use this silicone lino base, which is quite thick, and you can use both sides. You carve it with this tool, which is a lino cutting tool. This is a V shape, but there are many different ones, and I'm going to show you how to cut on a lino surface. So I hold it. I always cut away, never towards yourself, because you're going to cut yourself and make yourself full of blood, and yeah, it's painful. And I'm just grabbing a little bit of the surface with the lino tool and push it away from you. So it's pretty easy. It cuts like butter. Where it's deep, it's not going to print. Where the surface is nice and flat, is going to pick up the ink and print. So I have a few examples here. This is the little face that you can see there. And you can repeat it and make and hands. And this one has squares from one side and circles from the other side. And that's how they print roughly. They print differently on different fabrics. Again, if you have like a more smooth fabric, it's going to be smoother. I'm using as a support to put my ink a chopping board covered with foil, but you can use any kind of plastic non-absorbent old plate. I have a roller here to roll my ink, and block inks, water soluble, or inks for textiles, which are again water soluble. So I'm all ready, and now I'm going to show you how to spread the ink on your inking surface. So I'll put a little bit here. You can always refresh it when you feel you want to change the color or add more. I have an old card. You can use, instead of a spatula or a knife or something like that, a Mikey card or something like that. And I spread evenly the ink on the surface. And then I'll take my roller and I make sure that I pick up the ink with the roller from all the sides, all around. So I lift it up and roll it again. And you can hear a hissing sound as it sticks on the paint. And then I will cover my the top part of my linocut and build up the color slowly, nice and evenly. And then I will turn it around, place it where I want it, wherever you want it on your fabric. And I will press it with my hands quite steadily with lots of strength and weight, and then slowly lift up. And the first ones might be a little bit fainter, but as you progress, then your lino will pick up more and it will be a little bit more intense. I'll turn it around because I want to make a mirror. You can do whatever you want with your prints. You can use them in whichever way you want to. And you see the second one is a little bit deeper in color because it picks up more ink. So I'll go on and print a frieze of this. And as you print, the color will be a bit more intense. Make sure that you place it in the right way. You don't place it upside down if you don't want to. And then pressing again with your hands and lifting it up. And next, I'm going to show you how to print wet on wet. So it's a little bit different because you have a wet surface from acrylic colors underneath, and you're printing on top with your ink, and it gives a bit more of a watercolory effect. So I'm using this one and reversing my lino from one side to the other, so it creates a nice tile effect. And I'll ink it and print it on top, and you will see there's a little bit of difference between the one before and this one, because it creates more accidents. So more accidents, great. That's for me. I want more accidents. So I will place it. Take maybe a few minutes to press it, like a few seconds to press it with your hands. Move the brush away. And there you are. So you see it has this quality of transparency almost. It's not as covering as the other one. Have my red lines there, and I'll leave it also to dry. I'll do maybe once more. And you can always refresh your ink if you think that you're running out of ink. If you think that it's not covering enough, make sure that you cover the whole surface every time, and then print the other side as well. So you can go on, you can print like your whole piece if you want. I'm using a combination of printing and drawing and painting and embroidering, so that I have many languages together speaking on the fabric. So I'll leave it to dry with the other pieces. And now I'm going to show you something that went wrong. So I've painted my surface, and then I printed that yellow, but it didn't print well. So I'll print over with some kind of greenish black and see what happens. So you can always go back and play with your accidents. And sometimes they turn out nicely, and sometimes they don't, and you have to build more on them. But let's see what happens to this one. So a little bit of a darker tone, it brings up the yellow underneath. So it works for me right there. I'm happy. And now I've painted all the different ones. I have a finished one here with a found object there, embroidery on the painting. And this one has a little bit of beading on the nose, a plastic flower that I found, and it brings a little bit of three-dimensionality to the surface from the side. And I'll go very freely with beads and embroidery. I'll just do simple line there, simple dots here, simple lines over pastels and acrylics. This one is the one I was doing before, so that's how it turned out, with a little bit of embroidery there and a few beading underneath for the teeth. And this one has just a little yellow dot of beads. So you can go in any way, abstract, figurative, expressive. And I'm going to finish my little embroidery there. You see how the needle is a little bit hard to pass it through the painted surface. It makes it a little bit harder. And then I'm just securing it the way you secure your threads when you're embroidering. On the back side, you can see the red line where I'm going to stitch afterwards. So you just secure it as you always do and cut the thread and make it nice and neat. So we're all ready now to stitch them. I will put them one next to the other the way I want it to show. So if I want this upside down, I'll make sure that I arrange it by, now, so that I don't have to unstitch and stitch again. I'll turn it from the back side. So now I'm working on the back side of what we painted. I'm going to bring the edges together and the lines together. And I'm going to use the red line as a guide to stitch from one side to the other and sandwich them together. You can use pins to secure them. I'm quite lazy, I don't do that, and use my hands to keep them together. But it's quite a safe way to keep it steady with pins, because then you don't have accidents that you don't want to. And then the lid on top. So I'm going to start stitching, and I'll see you at the next step. So I'm stitching them together there. I'm holding them and feeding the machine from one side to the other. I have to rearrange sometimes. So if you don't use pins, that's what you do. You rearrange all the time. And once it's done, and I stitch all the pieces together, as you see, they're on the line as I wanted them. Now I will stitch the first one to the last one, like this. And I only see the back side of the paintings. And as I will stitch them, then I will bring the lid, and I will show you how I will do the lid. So I'll do this one, and now it's all done. And I'm going to bring the lid on top. And this is probably the trickiest bit to do because it's a bit fiddly. So you bring one edge to the other. You make sure that it's really to the edges. And then you stitch to this 1 centimeter margin, but from one side to the other. You don't leave gaps, because if you leave gaps, you will have holes on the top. Now, very quickly, I'm turning it to the other side. I work in a very fast way. And this one too. And you do the edges a little bit and the corners, and your head is all ready to go. So next and last step is just knitting up the edges. So you can use pompons, trims, beads, whatever you want, buttons. I'm just using a red thread here because I love red thread and it means a lot to me. So again, you can do it with pins and be very neat. Again, I'm not very neat, and I do it with my hands, and I love this raw stitching around it. It also makes the head much stronger. And when you put it up, it can stand a little bit on his feet, on his sides, whatever. And so this is all ready and done. And I will stop sharing now, I think. Yep, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Christina. That was an incredible insight to your practice. And I know we've had a couple of projects with you at Craft Victoria, so it's so exciting to see behind the scenes of your bright, colourful work. We do have a couple of questions before we jump to the next open studio with Stuart. So I'll just ask them to you. And if anyone else has any other questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A section. So you mentioned that you like to work with special materials that make you happy. What is an example of a special material?
Oh, threads and beads, I would say, as the first thing. Like I have here my huge blanket that I'm knitting for. I'm sitting on it. It's really huge. So threads really make me feel very happy, but also paints and brushes. I just distinguish between them, between the materials. Like there's a special brush that will make me feel better than another brush, and unprimed canvas makes me feel better than primed canvas. So this kind of little details, which really connects me to my tools and my materials, is very important. It's like a personal relationship with each one of them. Like I have my beloved pencils, and you know, there was a song, I think, of Johnny Mitchell, I live in a box of paints, and I feel quite like that way. I live in my world of materials.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And what particularly makes you like those materials? Like what is it about the pencil or the red bead or something, or the red
I
thread?
really don't know. It's probably something lost in childhood. I remember myself as a child playing with beads and pencils like if they were characters. So I would have like all my pencils, and I would marry brown to, I was arranging marriages. So brown was getting married to pink, and pink was getting married to green. And yeah, I was just matching colors and making them in pairs. So I don't know. I think it's. I really don't know where it comes from. Probably from the subconscious, I think. But yeah, it's deep, deep, deep in my childhood memories, I think. And my grandmother. My grandmother always had a basket with threads and needles, and I would play with this basket for ages.
Oh, and that's so beautiful. And yeah, so we have a question for from Vida, who would like to know, where did the idea for these brilliant creations come from? They are so unique and very brilliant.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for your kind words. You mean for the masks or for all of them?
I guess maybe the mask. Yeah,
The
your
mask.
Yeah.
Well, I'm attracted to masks all around the different cultures, from African masks to Bauhaus masks to Mexican masks. So I think I have, it is very attractive to me how you create a character out of card or papier mâché or fabric. And I also like the disguise of the identity as a metaphor to the mask. So yeah, sometimes they're scary, but I don't like them very scary. I don't like to be scared. I like to be happy.
Very good. Well, you definitely get that with the big, bright sort of colors. Yeah, that you.
And you can wear them.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can always wear them. You can't see through them, but you know.
Yeah. Well, Christina, thank you so much for your open studio and sharing your practice with us. It is now time for our next one. So we'll say goodbye to you. I'll
Thank you. Thank you so much.
move you
Thanks.
into the attendee list. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and stay tuned for our next one, who will be Stuart, who will be with us in a jiffy. So we'll just yeah, we'll just wait a second. We'll be back in a jiffy.